swear or affirm, excuse me, that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to God or also the truth? I do. All right, sir, thank you. Have a seat.
As a machinist?
I worked as a hydraulics assembly technician, but it's a related field.
Eventually, you and Brogan Rafferty and Scott Davis all end up in the same car?
Yes.
And that would have been Brogan Rafferty's car?
Sure would have. His Buick.
And where were you in the car?
I was in the front seat on the passenger side.
And Brogan was driving?
Yes.
And where was Mr. Davis?
He was sitting behind me.
Right. Now, you didn't recognize him when you saw him, right?
Pardon?
You didn't recognize Scott Davis as having seen him or knowing him before?
No, I did not.
Right. Now, would you describe in your own words then what happened after you got to the location where you were going to actually physically get out of the car and look at the farm?
Well, we went down to the farm and looked at the farm. And he was undecided as to whether or not he was going to take the job or not. He said, let me think about it. He said, by the time we get back to town where my truck's at, I'll have you an answer. So we left, and we went back up the drive, and instead of making a right to go directly back to town, Brogan made a left. And I asked him, I said, Brogan, why are we going this way? He said, well, this goes along the back of the farm, and so he can see where the rest of the farm's at. And we go down this road, and this road is trashed. There's been a partial mudslide or something, and there's gravel and there's ruts. And Brogan's car is dragging real bad. And he said, guys, we're never going to make it to the bottom with all this weight in here. I thought we could get through. I'm going to let you off down here, go around and turn around, and we'll go back the other way. And at that point, he had picked a wide spot in the road, and he let Scott and I out, and he went down the hill to turn around and come back.
You mean Brogan did?
Brogan did. He was driving the car, yes.
So he drove the car down to turn the car around?
To turn the car around.
Right. And you and Scott Davis did what?
Scott Davis then pulled out a revolver and pointed it at my head. And I threw my hands up and about urinated in my pants. And I just said, why? And he explained why. He said, brother, you're a weak link.
Now, tell us what you have learned in your years of connection with these violent motorcycle gangs, what that phrase means.
It means he knew I was a rat, an informant. And a weak link is used to describe somebody who either is a snitch or they think is going to snitch. And it's usually used as in you have to take the weak link out of the chain. And that's pretty well known among anybody familiar with that environment.
Now, in fact, is that true? Were you a
I sure was.
Well, let me finish now.
Go ahead.
Were you a weak link or a snitch?
Yes, I was.
And tell me about that. Was that here in Akron or someplace else?
That was here in Akron.
And who were you dealing with here in Akron?
Initially, I dealt with Officer Alan Jones, who was on the street narcotics squad. But I had bought him information on multiple times involving motorcycle gangs. So he hooked me up with Lieutenant Keith Meadows of the Akron Police Department, who was the gang officer who specifically dealt with motorcycle gangs.
After he said you were a weak link, brother.
Yes.
While pointing his gun at you, what happened?
It misfired 3 times, about 2 feet from my face. And I ran in the woods, and he ran after me. I fell. I'm just not in a condition to run. He got on top of me. We were wrestling over the gun. It misfired, then it fired, then it misfired. So 1 time out of 6 times, and at a glance, I would say it was an old gun. It was pitted. That's all I can remember, and it was a revolver. And he had his 6 shots, and he yelled when it went off, and when it went off, it went bang quick. In other words, he was continually pulling the trigger. So he yelled, and I pushed him away, and he just kind of pushed away, and I said, "That's your 6." So if he was going to kill me, he had to do it with his hands.
Did you know whether or not he was apparently struck with one of the bullets?
I thought he was from the way he reacted, and I thought it hit him in the arm. Because of the way we were wrestling around, I had one hand on his gun hand, and the gun was pointed up.